And we had thought of some people that might work out, but it didn't end up working out. And then I was supposed to find somebody else as the speaker coordinator, but I failed, and I didn't even try. If I'm being honest, one of the biggest reasons is because the people who have made the most influence in my life, as far as my marriage goes, one is my parents, and my dad passed away a couple years ago, which I won't go into right now because nobody wants to hear that at this moment. And the other couple that has made a huge difference in my life, the wife passed away 2 years ago. So I was like, well, who am I going to ask? Because those are the people to me that have had the strongest, most impactful marriages to me, and have influenced my marriage. And so I procrastinated long enough, and I went to our steering team, and I was like, maybe we'll have a game day. And everybody's like, yeah, we can do that, or and I was like, or I really, really, really felt like God wanted me to share, and I was pretty much saying, no, I'm not going to. Anyways, so that brought me to here, where I am going to share with you all, and I want to start by saying that I in no way believe that I have the perfect marriage. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. I mean, I have a 3-year-old, and I'm fairly certain that their job is to keep it from being the perfect marriage. I love my children, but they don't make it easy on your marriage necessarily. So I'm not saying I have a perfect marriage. However, I've learned a lot in my 8.5 years of marriage, which is not very long. But I feel like I've been very blessed, and I want to share the knowledge that I do have. So I want to share a verse that I was reading yesterday and thought, oh, this kind of just seems perfect for our group of ladies. It's Proverbs 31:10-12. It says, "Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life." I really like that because do we try to bring good to our husbands? I think that's something that's hard to do sometimes because we have our children. Our children demand a lot of attention. So our marriages a lot of times will go on the back burner. My husband actually has been a great example to me of how to model a healthy marriage, which is interesting because he came from a divorced family. His parents were divorced. His dad's been divorced a number of times, but his parents were divorced, and so he did not have that growing up. He didn't have the strong model. I did, and I still am learning from him. Every single day, at some point during the day, he comes up to me and he says, "What can I do for you?" Every day. "What can I do for you?" And at first I was like, he doesn't, I mean, you don't think about it as, he doesn't mean that. What can you do for me? Well, you can clean the house, buddy. I mean, you really don't think of it as being a true, genuine, I can use your help. And he genuinely means it. He says to me, "You are my priority. What can I do?" And it took me a while to understand that he actually meant it. So my question has been recently, am I willing to say that back to him? And I genuinely mean it. Because if I'm willing to say, "What can I do for you?" I better be willing to follow through. And that's a problem for me too often. I do ask now, and the majority of the time the answer from both of us is, "Nothing, I'm good." And that's okay too. But at least you're asking and you're making sure they know that you're their priority. So that's important. Also, marriage is not 50-50. A lot of people say, it's give and take, 50-50. But what I've learned and what I've heard, and actually I asked a very dear friend of mine who is also strong in her marriage, because I could have had her talk. Anyways, she's very strong in her marriage, and I asked her if you could give a bunch of young women advice, what would it be? And she said that marriage is not 50-50. I'm like, sweet, I wrote that down already. Felt like I was on the ball. Anyways, she said it's 100-100. You give of yourself. Marriage isn't 50-50. There are times when you can only give 15% and your husband will have to give 75%, especially when your kids are young, and vice versa. Sometimes he can only give a little, and you have to selflessly give more, which can be very, very challenging. But if we go into marriage thinking, what can I get? What can I get? Can you give me more? I can't do this right now. You're not going to thrive in your marriage. So making sure to say, what can I do? Let me help you is important. And also, along that line, is being real when you're at your wit's end. You have to be able to be real about that too. You know what? I just really need some time for me right now. The other day, I said that to my husband, and he's like, go ahead. Go out to French press, go where you want, just relax, take some time for you, I'll watch the kids. And I felt so guilty before I left my house. I was like, I don't really need the kids. Never mind, I'll just stay home. He's like, you said you need some time, please take it. But if you're not real about it and you're not taking care of you, you can't help your family. So you need to also be willing to do that. That was my first point. Get ready, there's so many more. Another thing that I have found to be incredibly important, and I think I've shared this before with a number of you, maybe all of you, never, ever, 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 ever speak poorly of your husband. Ever. Never, ever. This is huge. And this includes, this can be really hard, even in little things. A lot of times you get women together, and I think I may have been guilty of this morning, but you get women together and you say, oh, my husband does this. And then you feel like you have to say, oh, I know what you're talking about. You want to know what my husband did? And you get into this peer pressure circle, just keep going. And you don't need to do that. I read a really great article not long after I was married that said, basically, there was a gal who said, look at this gal from our church. Watch her. She will never say anything bad about her husband. And this woman made an actual effort to watch this gal and see if she'd ever turn up. She never spoke ill of her husband. And her marriage was strong and it was secure. And her husband was secure in their marriage. And she was secure in their marriage. And that really, really resonated with me. And that was huge. Because I don't think about it as like, the biggest thing to know about that is when things are better between you and your spouse, if you're having a problem, when things are better, nobody else is going to give them the same grace that you will. So you might be fighting about something, and then you get over it. Oh, everything's better. You may have done something really, 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 really bad, like having an affair or whatever. Nobody else is going to be able to forgive him the way you will, because you are his spouse. I'm in no way saying that having an affair is the thing to do. I'm not saying that, but I am saying don't share that especially with people that he knows. Because that's hurtful, and they don't forget. Friends don't forget those things. Even when you want them to, when you're like, no, it's okay, we're good now. Yeah, but do you remember when he did that? They go back to that. So don't talk to them about it. And that's huge. It also doesn't build each other up in love. Sorry, I have to read my notes. The other thing is, my Aunt Carol is the woman I was talking about that passed away not that long ago. And she made a huge impact in my life. And one time we were over at her house, and I made a joke at my husband's expense. And I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh yeah, whatever it was. And she looked at me with him sitting there and she said, honey, you don't do that. And I was like, I felt like a 2-year-old. I just kind of shrunk down. And she's like, you need to build your husband up. You are not encouraging him. You are not making him feel secure in who he is. This is important that you make him feel loved by you. And he should feel like he can trust you with anything. And if you're tearing him down, even in humor, you're not doing that. So this is a very, very important thing. So at that point, when I make jokes now, I still make a lot of jokes, and we still tease a lot, but they're not something that's going to hurt him. It's not going to tear him down. Hey, we got 3.2. I love to act. I love being in front of people. I love being in front of people when somebody gives me a script and tells me what to say. It's not the same as writing my own script. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I apologize if I seem a little, yeah. If I could sing it all, I'd probably be good.
Sing them. Yeah, sing it out. Sing it out. Sing them.
Anyways, okay. This is a very controversial point, but I think I sound like my son. I think this is important. The role of a husband, in my opinion, and from what the Bible says, is so much harder in a marriage than it is for a wife. And let me explain this. A husband's job is to love his wife as Christ loved the church. What did Christ do for the church? He died. He was willing to give everything for his wife, his church. Our job as wives is to be respectful and submissive. Submissive is not subservience. It is not saying, okay, honey, whatever you want to do. That's not submission. Submission is working side by side along with your husband. And I wrote notes, so I need to actually read them because this is important. It is also not for every man. This is specifically for your husband. You do not need to be submissive to any other man but your husband. God calls you to be submissive to him and him alone. And God, obviously. It is not agreeing with everything your husband says. In our relationship, it's discussing things, but ultimately when my husband has the final decision, and I will respect that decision because he is doing what's best for us. If he is loving me as Christ loved the church, he is doing it the right way. It's a relationship that God intended it to be in that way. So, I know that's like, a lot of people are like, oh, don't talk to me about this. So I apologize in advance if it offends, but I feel like because God says it in his word, it is important that we know it. God also calls both parties, husband and wife, to respect each other. This is not a one-sided, okay, women need to be respectful of their husbands and men do whatever you want. This is a mutual thing. We need to respect each other. God calls all of us to respect each other. So that's important. And that goes along, I mean, if you have a relationship that's going the way God has called it to go, it's going to be very easy to be submissive in that case because you're doing what's best for your family. Also, we're submissive by choice and out of love for our husbands and the Lord. Our husbands don't make us be submissive. They cannot make us be submissive. That's important to know also. If they were to, I have some family that they're no longer together, they're no longer married, but one of the things they had said, I remember one day she came up to me and I said, oh, that's a really pretty dress. She said, oh, I can't wear it anymore. I said, why? Oh, because he doesn't like it. He told me I can't. And I was like, who cares? That is not his place. And I still feel that way because that is not what God means by submission. Also, the more you show love and respect to your husband, the more he'll want to cherish and love you. We cannot change our husbands. We can change ourselves. So if we're willing to show them love and respect, that's going to help. Although, for the husband, the more he loves and cherishes you, the more you'll want to respect and love him. So it does go both ways. Okay, that one wasn't that fun. On the back of the papers I gave you, the very last page, there is stuff for anybody who's like, no. You can look and there's more information about submission because it's such a big topic that I would like you to look at it on your own if you want, if it's something you're questioning, because it is one of those things where it's like, I don't know that I agree with that. I could spend a whole lot more time talking about it, and I'm not going to. So, if you want to look into it, you can. Okay, number 4. By the way, I think I have like 10. Yeah, I have 10 things. We're only on 4. I was going to do the top 5, and I just kept coming up with things. Oh, this is a good one too. Okay. Number 4 is put your husband first. Put your husband before your kids. Make sure your kids get to see that. This is huge. It is so easy for me to just talk about my kids the whole time, and like with my husband even. And your husband needs to know how important he is to you, and how loved he is by you, and if you're putting all of the emphasis on your children, he's not seeing that, and your kids aren't seeing that. And your kids need to see that so that they know what a healthy marriage looks like also. Because you want them to have thriving marriages. I know you do, if they were to marry, right? Obviously. So I want to make sure to share that with you, that your kids need to see that. They need to know how much you love each other. And it's a security thing for your kids too. It makes them feel incredibly secure and grossed out, which is awesome. Who doesn't want to gross out your kids? Right? Yeah. So it's good. I actually was telling someone at the theater not that long ago, I said something about, oh, my husband and I, we totally make out in front of our kids. And she goes, oh, that's disgusting. She's a teenager. She goes, I don't think I've ever even seen my parents kiss. And I'm like, I'm sorry you've never gotten to see them kiss. So how do you even know how to do it? I gave her a really hard time. But I just think it's important to be loving to your spouse. You have your limits, whatever they are, that's great. But it is okay to be loving to your spouse in front of your kids. And to show them that. And I will say also, the whole, what can I do for you? The other day, my husband actually, he didn't even put this together, but I did. My son came up to me the other day, I was making dinner, and he said, Mom, can I help you? And I said, sure, bud. And I gave him a knife, because that's what you give a 3-year-old. And I had him start cutting on things, and then after he was done with that, he said, what else can I do for you? And I was like, I don't think I need anything right now. He goes, well, when you do, please tell me so I can help you. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect. So I told my husband that night. He goes, I wonder where he learned that. And I said, are you kidding? He's like, no, what? And I said, you say that to me all the time. So when we model that for our children, it also teaches them how to love their spouses and their mothers, which is super important. So how often do we kiss in front of our kids? They need to see that in marriage, it's not taboo to do that. That's an okay thing. I think a lot of times, like I talked about this last year during MOPS, sex is an okay thing in marriage. It's a beautiful, amazing gift that we get to have. And don't have sex in front of your kids. But it is a huge gift that we get to experience. And if we make it taboo, our girls, our daughters and our sons too, but mostly our girls, I think, will struggle with this as they get older, to know that it's an okay thing as a married couple to do that. So make googly eyes and love on each other. It's a beautiful thing. Always make marriage a priority. Find new ways to make your husband feel loved. I just started literally like 2 days ago. There's this blog by a lady named Kathy Lipp, L-I-P-P, and she has a book called 21 Days to a Better Relationship. And I am right now, like I get an email every day and it says, do this for your husband. And yesterday, it was like the easiest thing ever. It's like, send your husband a text and tell him you love it. And I'm like, oh, I do that all the time anyways. But okay, I'll just word it differently. And I'll tell you what, this is funny, because a lot of times my husband just replies like, oh yeah, I love you too, thanks. And this time, he said, I want you to know what I love about you today. And I was like,
Dude, are you reading this book too?
Exactly. This is amazing. How did you know? Like, this is amazing. Anyways, and I just really excited about it. But if we show our husbands love in different ways, I think it will bless them, and it will bless our marriages in different ways too. There's also, I'm sure everyone here, or most of you, have heard of the movie, the Fireproof movie. Yeah. Everyone knows it's Fireproof. If you don't know it, it's a very, very good movie, I think, with cheesy acting, but a good movie.
Kirk Cameron is not cheesy.
Kirk Cameron's not cheesy, but there is some really cheesy acting in it. Kirk Cameron's just not. But they have a book that they go along with. It's called The Love Dare Challenge. Anyways, I have that book also, and I just love finding new ways to show my husband love. So that's something that I would recommend is spice it up, change it up, make it new for you. Especially because it's very easy to let things get run down, especially when your kids are little and you're tired and you don't want to do anything else. It makes it hard. So, anyways, put your husband first. I think it's in the list of things. I had asked a question on Facebook, and I know some of you actually didn't answer it, about what makes a marriage strong, basically, for you. So that is what those answers are, the Facebook friends answers. Anyways, and one guy said that you make your spouse your priority, you tell your kids, and you send them away to go do something else, and don't let them bother you unless they're waiting. And I was like, well, when they're 3 and 1, that's next to impossible. However, you can put them to bed early if you don't give them a nap. So you might suffer through most of the day while they're not napping, but then they go to bed at like 7, and you're like, woo, party time! So just something to consider there. Anyways, all right, number 5, communication. Share more than is necessary. Men aren't so much into talking. They don't do that a lot. Most men don't. My husband's included in that. When we were dating, one time, it actually happened multiple times, but one of the times that I remember is he's just not a talker. He wants to spend time with me, holding hands and watching a movie. That's time together. And I'm like, let's talk. And so so he got into this habit of talking every once in a while, because it wasn't often because I would always talk anyways. I didn't talk too much. And one day he said, so I have to tell you what happened at work. And I said, okay. And I was like giddy with excitement that he was going to tell me this. And I was like, all right. And he goes, so I was at work the other day. I said, I got to tell you something. Oh my gosh. And he's like, what? And I was like, so I started just going on, and he just stopped. And afterwards, I said, why didn't you tell him your story? He goes, because you're talking. And I was like, oh. I said, I just got so excited. When I get excited, I talk. And when he gets excited, yeah. Anyway, so it was just one of those things where I needed to learn to be quiet so he could talk also. And maybe nobody else struggles with that, but I didn't even realize it was something I had done until after he told me. So again, share, communicate, talk. Share everything. Don't hide things. Please don't keep secrets from your spouse unless it's an awesome surprise. Then go for it. But don't keep secrets. And that includes, I think I wrote this, your finances, messages, Facebook, text, everything. Be open. Super, 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 super important. And I say this from experience. I have a family member who got into a relationship with someone that she met that she had known prior to Facebook, and then reconnected with them, and her marriage is over. So this is like one of those things that I really, really want to stress. My husband, if he gets a text at like 10 o'clock at night, I'm like, who's that? If I get a text at 10 o'clock, who's that? And it's not because I'm worried about who's, but it's open. There's no reason. If you feel like you have to hide anything, you need to reassess what you're doing, because that is a problem. Almost always it's a problem if you feel like you have to hide something from your spouse. Because they should be the most important person in your life. So be honest. The other thing is, when you start with little things, like my family member, Facebook, it was a message. It wasn't a big deal. I'm not going to see him. We're just, we dated years ago, but I'm not going to see him. I can message him. Her husband didn't have her password. He didn't have her information. And it can easily get out of control. So I know I took that super serious, but to me this is like huge. Because you don't think of Facebook as being a problem, but it can be. Anything can be. A text message, locking your phone so that your husband can't see what you're getting. That can be damaging if it's not for good. I mean, obviously, like, there are times where you want to do that for a surprise, I get that. But if it's not for a surprise, don't hide it. Don't hide it. I am not saying, so sometimes, you have the negative comments, you feel negatively or whatever, and there are times where you don't necessarily need to share all of it, because you're not being positive or loving, but it is good to tell them where you're at, too. My husband has gotten really, really good at that, where if there's a problem, and I can tell, I'll say, so what's going on? And he'll tell me. But us as women, at least maybe I shouldn't say us as women, maybe I should just say me. When I get mad, I just bottle it up, and I get really quiet. So like I said, when I'm happy, I get like super talky, and when I'm not, I'll just sit there. And he'll say, are you okay? Yeah. Really? Because you seem like something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. And I'll turn away. Anyways, and it gets like worse and worse and worse. And what I realized is if I just say, it really bothered me when this happened, he can then address it. Or not. That's his choice at that point. But at least I've gotten it out instead of holding it in. However, if you're one of those people that blows up, then hold off for a while. And then you talk to him about it. So this goes right into my next point. A question to ask during arguments. First of all, if you're really upset, pause. Take a break. Then come back. Then you say, what can we do to resolve this? What can we do to resolve this? Or how can we make this better? Before my husband, I had a boyfriend who, when we would fight, we would just fight. It was like, there wasn't any oh, I make you so mad when you do blah, blah, blah. And he'd be like, yeah, da, 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 We wouldn't resolve anything. We would just fight. And then at the end of it, be like, okay, I guess we're good. No big deal. And it was never like a healthy ending. And which is probably why he was never my husband. And then I married, and then I met my boyfriend, who was not my husband. And one time I was, because girls I get really mean when I'm PMSing. And I was one day, and I got really mean, and I was saying some not nice things to him, and I was just being ugly. And he stopped me and he said, what can I do to fix this? And I was like, well, I didn't even know there was anything to fix. I just wanted to kind of yell like that. So it's one of those things, if you will learn, why am I upset, and what can I do to fix this? Hey, it really bothers me. I feel hurt when, instead of, you shouldn't do that, they're immediately going to shut down. I shut down. My husband does that to me every once in a while. I'm just like, well, whatever, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. So, I would recommend that. Also, compromising is important. My husband and I have very different ways of fighting. You need to learn, how they talk about you need to learn your spouse's love language? And I think that's cool. I think it's really good. But you also need to learn your spouse's fight language. Which sounds weird. But my husband, when he gets upset, when he needs space, he needs time by himself so he can brood for a minute and get over it. I, on the other hand, want to talk it out. Let's just talk it out, let's get it done so I can feel better. And I don't want him to just sit there quietly. I need him to talk to me about this. And so we have compromised. He's probably done more of the compromising than I have. But we have compromised where he will talk to me, we'll talk it out, and I'll say, are we good? We're good. He'll go off and do what he needs to now make it better for him. There are times, too, where I need to realize I'm being not as nice. And so I tell him, take your time. Go do what you need to do. Because a lot of times he would go off by himself and I'd say, I thought we were fine. Why are you leaving? Apparently we're not good. No, we're good. I just really need some time to myself right now. So you need to learn his language for that as well, so that you can support him as he gets over his frustrations. Because I know that I get over mine and then he's still angry for a while and I'm like, I thought we were good. So that's something I want to mention. So I guess the better way to say it is learn your cool down methods and work together to resolve them. See, I have really good notes. I should just look at sex. Don't use sex as a bargaining tool, but do be honest and tell them what makes them more attractive to you. Have sex as often as possible. Do not withhold sex from your partner. Do not withhold sex from your partner. If you're mad at them, talk it out and then have some sex. But don't same couple, Facebook stuff. They didn't have sex for a while because he was mad at her for something. That didn't help them, obviously. Don't use that. Don't use that against each other because God has created you to be together. So use that time together. Another thing I wanted to say about sex, and this is probably good. No, I'm not going to say that part. I didn't write this in my notes. It's really, really hard to find time when you have a newborn and when you have a little one to have sex. It's super, super hard. Especially when they don't want to go to bed and then they get up and they're like, Mom, I don't want to go to sleep yet. I need you to cuddle with me until I fall asleep. And then it's 10 o'clock at night and you're just like, I just want some sleep. I get that. So what I would like to suggest, somebody told me this when I got married. It was before I had kids and I was kind of like, that's a really funny thing to say. But her best advice for me, and they've been happily married for many, many, many years, her best advice was always take showers together. And I was like, that sounds cold. Well, it is for him. I see you her. Anyways, it's you might be a morning shower person. Most of us are. I like to shower right before I get into bed so it's nice and clean and just feels super good when you get into bed. But the other thing is, it's a really great place to do when your kids are asleep. If they're in your room, doesn't matter. There's a shower there. So just saying. I'm going to use further than that. Just saying. Anyway, so on to the next topic. Okay, number 8. If you don't have parents that were a good example, find someone who will be that for you in their marriage. I would encourage everyone to find a couple in their later years of marriage. Not someone like me who has an amazing, awesome marriage that never has problems. Don't find someone like me. Just kidding, I don't. That's why I'm saying that. Find a couple in their later years of marriage that have a strong, healthy, awesome marriage. Watch for them. They're there. There's people like that out there, and it's really good to find them. The kind of you need to look for these people that have the kind of marriage that you want to have. When you find those people, maybe you could ask them if they will be willing to mentor you and your husband. Obviously, talk to your husband about that first. And I guess the reason I say that is because I had that, and it made all the difference for me. It made all the difference for me with my parents and with my godparents. They were the biggest influences in my life. They were the biggest influences as far as our marriage goes, in my husband's life as well. And so it makes a huge difference to have somebody who you trust, that you know you can go to, and that you see their marriage and say, I want to have a marriage like that. One thing I'd also like to say is that obviously none of us have a perfect marriage. We don't. However, I feel like there are people who have strong marriages, and it's a good thing to use those people as your resources. And it doesn't mean they're not going to have troubles, but they have learned how to work through it in a healthy way. So use them. I think that's super, super, super important. It made a huge difference in my marriage. And also, I always go back to, in the Bible, Paul says something like, do as I do. And a lot of people are like, well, that's super arrogant. Do as I do. whatever. But I think he was a man after God's heart. I mean, he wanted to do what would make God happy. So if you see a couple that is doing what you believe is the right thing, do as they do. There's nothing wrong with that. I often pray. My godmother was the most amazing, strongest, godly woman I've ever met in my entire life. I've never met anyone like her. And I think it's totally appropriate to pray, God, make me like her. Because I was able to see her. And so I know what she was like. So I can use her as my example. God, how do you like her? So it could be the same thing in your marriage. This is kind of goes along the same point as the earlier one with kids, but because this topic was actually supposed to be like making it through the early years with your kids, and I haven't really done that at all. So I was like, I can't really talk on that. This is like, I'm right in the thick of it, and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't get time with my husband, so this is one of the things I ask people about, and it's also in your notes. But make time for each other. If someone offers to watch your kids so you can go out, take it. Take it. Always, always, always take it. Unless, they're not a good person. Don't take it then. But otherwise, take it. Your time with your spouse is important. Ask around, find a babysitter. If you don't have a babysitter, maybe you should talk to people at your tables. I mean, if I had a babysitter, I probably wouldn't even share the name because I'd be like, no, she is my babysitter. But I don't have that right now. Talk amongst your tables. See if anybody has a great babysitter that they want to use. So you can find a babysitter. Like I said, take showers together. I did write it in here. Seriously, sometimes that might be the only way you have some alone time. Most people are morning shower people, so what? Shower at night. Find ways to show that you love each other. Hold hands, write notes, things like that. I listen to a lot of broadcasts from Focus on the Family, and they do a lot of marriage talks, and I always love to listen to those. I get really excited about them. And one of them, they said, when you're fighting, when you get upset, hold hands. Awkward. Hey babe, I'm really mad at you right now, but we need to talk. So come here and sit by me, and let's hold hands and talk. But it kind of loosens things up, immediately, because you cannot hold hands with somebody that you love and fight with them at the same time. Not the same way, anyways, unless you're hurting each other. So, another idea that I thought I would throw out there for those who are like, I really need time with my husband, and I'm not getting it. I'm not saying that this is something I do, but I thought it was a good idea, and I read about it recently. Babysitting co-op. Get 5, 6, 7 moms. All of you want a break. All of you want nights out. So once a quarter, you have to watch somebody else's kids. Don't do it once a month, you have to watch somebody's kids, because you're not going to want to do that because you already have your own. But once every couple of months or whatever, that could be really ideal, because then you're still getting time for yourself and getting what you need. So just something to consider, babysitting co-op. All right, I'm on the last point. I'm almost done, guys. I'm sorry, so much. What if you aren't in love with your spouse right now? You're tired. You're worn out. He's frustrating and annoying as all get out because you need more from me right now? I haven't given enough right now. I've been taking care of the kids all day. Can you please give me a break? 2 things I want to say to you. Number one, what is it that you loved about him when you married him? If you're feeling like you can't think of anything that you like about this person right now, think about what you loved about them. Write those things down. They're still there. And I'd like you to remember them. Look at them. Look at the list of things. And then tell him, this is what I love about you. Keep it fresh in your mind. The Bible says to remember the husband of your youth. Actually, it says the wife of your youth, but I think it pretty much applies to us as well. If we're looking at our spouses in that way, as what we loved about them, it's going to help. I just think it's super important. When you're struggling in your marriage, Try to enjoy him, even when you don't. Try. Show him love, even when you don't want to. Pray, 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 pray. God wants your marriage to be blessed. He has brought you two together for a reason, and when you married him, you became one. Treat yourself with love by treating your spouse with love. That's one of the things I was thinking about recently is, if this person is a part of me, I treat myself with the most amazing respect. I get up in the morning, and I feed myself, and I work out, and I do whatever I need to do to take care of me. What do I do to take care of my husband? He's part of me. Now, obviously, there's two sides to this. I'm not saying that your husband, that you have to do everything, but because I'm not talking to your husbands, I'm telling you what I know to be true for us. So just keep that in mind. I also have been thinking about this a lot recently, which is there are millions and millions and millions of people in this world, right? And God intended for the person that you are with right now, or the person that's coming, to be with you forever. He already put that person in your path for a reason. Out of everyone, God chose this person for you. They were born with you in mind, which is kind of an amazing thought. In God's mind, not in theirs, because they have no idea. But in theirs. And so that's a pretty incredible thought, that God brought this person into your life. Your husband is your gift from God. It's a gift that we get. So we should love and pray for our husbands as such. So with all of that, I have an assignment for everybody. Teacher, I want you to ask your husband this week, what is one thing I can do for you today? What is one thing I can do for you today? Doesn't have to be big. And if he says something like, oh, but build me a spaceship, which my husband has said like half a dozen times, I'm not joking. You just spit the Bible. Or, he actually, I used to say, I love you so much. And he'd say, oh yeah, I love you more. And I'd say, no, but you don't. You don't understand how much I love you. And he'd say, build me a spaceship. And I'd say, I can't do that. Well, then I guess you don't love me more. And I'd say, you're not building me one. He goes, you didn't ask me to. So, a rocket, a model rocket. He told me, I told him I was going to do that. And he said, no, it's got to be a big one. Whatever. And then he said, make me a quilt. So I did. And he goes, oh, I already asked you. I already changed it to a spaceship. I'm like, shut up.
Build him one out of boxes. When he comes home one day, it's just this.
Look, I have a rocket for you.
It's a big one.
Ask your husband to name one thing you can do this week to make him feel lavishly loved. You should use that word too. Lavishly. Put his idea at the top of your to-do list and carve out time to do it, which is hard to do. It's hard to find time when we have the little ones at home. It's really, really hard, but I think it's really important that we make that time because they need to be our priority, more than our kids. And then, this is your last assignment, I think. Maybe we'll have more. Yep, I have two more. I have a lot of assignments. You guys better get on it. Find a babysitter and go on a date this month. Hey, guess what? We have Mom's Night Out. It's bowling. You can go on a date there. But you don't have to. You can do a different day. Just make sure you go out this month. Find someone to watch your kids go out this month. Sometime. Make it happen. Tell your husband what you love about him. I have been working, challenging myself to write a list of things I love about my husband, not because they're having problems, but because I like to be able to tell him things that are different, that are unique, that are new, that I haven't said before. So I would recommend that you don't have to do that. One of the things that I really, really love about my husband is that he's an incredibly hard worker. We met at work. He works at a drug and alcohol treatment facility, and I was a patient. Just kidding. I worked there as well. And watching his work ethic was like super hot. I'm not kidding you. It was incredible to watch him. Like, it didn't matter. I'd be like, hey, come here. And he'd be like, I have such So those are your tasks, okay? So I have some tasks for you. Also, there's I told you guys there's the 21-day challenge, and if you're interested, I did bring the book somewhere. I have it here. I think it's over in the stuff. But I brought the book that I'm going off of, but there's also, like I said, it's a blog that I get an email once a day, and it just tells me, do this for your husband. And it's also for the husbands too. So I sent it to my husband, and I'm like, I'm in no way saying you have to do this, but I'm not saying it's going to hurt. So anyways, you can do it, or you can do your husband or together, or whatever. But I would recommend finding ways to share your husband. I also, on the back of your sheets, I also put, what did I put on the back of the sheets? Books. Books. Those are all books that I can recommend because I've read. The Power of the Praying Wife is one of my favorite books. I read that, and I read The Power of the Praying Child. And my goal, I haven't started yet this year, but my goal is 31 chapters, I believe. And so you can read a chapter a day. They're really short, and at the end of it, it tells you the prayer. Like it gives you a prayer. Like you don't even have to think of what you want to say. It tells you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with praying that way. Sometimes it's good. It gives you what to say. So it's 31 chapters. Start on the first and go until the end of the month. It's awesome, and it's a great way to build up your husband and your kids and yourself. I also put another post that I put on there.
5 love languages.
The 5 love languages, which I also read and loved. And one of the things I didn't say and I wanted to mention was, if you've not read that, I have a couple of little raffles, and so we need to get tickets out for you guys because I have some books. But I have this little gift type book of the 5 love languages. And one of the things they talk about is your love language is usually how you show love, is what you use as your love language. And your husband doesn't normally necessarily have the same love language as you. So, like my husband, it actually surprises me, is touch. Like he loves touch and service. Obviously service, but touch is, I was like, really? Like, I would thought that would be mine, but mine is like gifts. I love gifts. And affirmations. So, anyways, but knowing what his love language is, it helps me to be able to build him up the way that he needs for that. So there's also a book on there called The Real Marriage, or Real Marriage, which is awesome, like really good, and it talks a lot about sex. You guys are gonna think I'm like a sex addict. I really don't enjoy it. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like it's my end all be all. But The Real Marriage talks about what's okay and what's not. Because there are a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. This book kind of just goes into like everything, you know, like, oh, is this okay? What about this? How about this? And basically the answer I can tell you right now is you're married, do what's happy, what makes you guys happy. That's the answer, that's the bottom line. If you're married, do what makes you happy. But anyways, it's a really good book, and it talks about a lot of different things that I would recommend you read it. I think those are all the books. And then I just got a new book that I'm going to be reading. It's about marriage and things like that. And then, because I had the challenge of finding something to do for a date, I put this on everybody's tables, and it's 20 date ideas. So you guys have lots of options here. Anyways, I think that's it. I'm going to hand out tickets. I talked for a really long time. Thank you all for listening and being gracious to me. And yeah, I will be back to do a round 1 minute.